Esteemed audience, thank you for tuning in to yet another amazing episode of the Great Debaters Contest. We take it a notch higher, debate after debate. This is the Great Debaters Contest Season 9. I am your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperancia Kapanga. We are in Eastern Region in Machakos County, and in today's debate, the motion is renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government.
In the proposition, we have Matungulu Girls High School.
And in the opposition are the ladies from Machakos Girls High School. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes to start us off.
I was annoyed when I was told that I am going to debate on renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. I mean, how could anyone ever support this? Who could ever support the downfall of a nation? Because this is where we are actually heading to if we are against this motion. But hey, a little competition is healthy, right? It's quite obvious that Joy Bwiru Matungulu Girls is proposing this motion. Renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. Renewable is the ability to be reused or to be recycled over and over again. Forms is a type or variety of something, while energy is a source of power, e.g. fuel, used to drive machines. Renewable forms of energy, these are the ones which are supplied by processes in the environment. Subsidize is to provide money or to fund an institution or an individual in order to support them. Lastly, the government is a group of people in charge of controlling a particular nation or state. Renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. By this, I mean that the government should provide funds to support the development of these renewable forms of energy which are helpful to us, of which I agree. According to International Energy Agency, renewable forms of energy create little, if any, emissions to the atmosphere. This will not disrupt the radiative energy balance of the atmosphere, and it will permit mitigation of climate change. Climate change has been a problem to us as a country. Climate change has been a problem to us as a nation. We are a witness. Recently in April, we suffered delayed rains. There was high temperature. People died, plants withered, there was inflation of goods. Where are we heading to as a country? But when we subsidize these renewable forms of energy, we will be assured to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which is affordable and clean energy. According to Inventor Business, Book 3, Topic 1, which is demand and supply, decrease in price will increase the demand in the market. Wow. When the government decides to subsidize these renewable forms of energy, even those who are unfinancially stable will be able to access them. There will be increase in demand, and the government will be able to earn a lot of income through taxation of these people. We will be able to boost our economy. We will be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. We will also be able to create employment opportunities, because we will need people to work in the hydroelectric power station. We will need people to install these solar panels for us to convert solar energy to electrical energy. Yes, the government should subsidize these renewable forms of energy. 40% of the people are unable to meet their basic needs, but when we subsidize these renewable forms of energy, we will be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which is no poverty. Let's review our past full lessons and make new decisions for the better.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes to make your submissions.
The future belongs to the efficient. Government should not subsidize the renewable forms of energy. Let the consumers determine the winners and the losers. My name is Selina Ote from Machakos Academy Girls High School, and I'm here to oppose the motion that says renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. Renewable. What does renewable mean? These are the forms of energy that do not undergo depletion, and they can be used over and over again without exhaustion. Subsidization is when the government or an organization pays a certain amount of money so as to reduce on the cost of a good or to reduce the cost of a service. This will lead me to my first point. Subsidies have seldom led to anything. And governments have a miserable track records when it comes to picking future investments. I mean, why should the government subsidize these renewable forms of energy, yet they have difficulties in other pending activities? We all heads seated over here know that Kenya has a debt for China, 1.2 trillion. If the proposers over here are willing to help Kenya pay for the debt, you can go on. I mean, it's okay. That is okay. You can do that. On to my second point. I hope no one among you will come here and tell me about job creation. Because why should the government subsidize renewable forms of energy? The VAT of machine will be reduced. Thus, more machines will be used for the power energy. This means that if the government subsidizes the renewable forms of energy, it will be just for the machines that will be used. This means that you seated over there will be among the people who will be taxed more on the money that is being used to subsidize. Are we getting each other? I hope we are. So that means that the proposers might end up becoming unemployed, and I'm sure you don't want that. I'm sure you don't. On to my third point, which is my last. The government should, I don't see the point of the government subsidizing the renewable forms of energy. Why? Renewable, they can be recycled, used over and over again. Yes, you've said that. This means that it can rely on weather. Taking, for instance, that you are taking a warm shower, and boom, cold water strikes your back like thunder. Claiming that you have a solar panel. Tell me. You have a solar panel, yet it cannot provide hot showers for you. What's the essence? Yes, you have batteries for backups, but that won't help. Look at the bigger picture. My proposers, look at the bigger picture. Selina Ote, lights off.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Mbiu ya mgambo ikilia, kuna jambo. This is a Swahili proverb that sends a bell ringing in my mind whenever I hear of someone in opposition of subsidies of renewable sources of renewable forms of energies. It tells me that something is wrong. It tells me that something is amiss and I need to intervene. Maria Okore from Matungulu Girls strongly proposing the motion that states renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. Given the definition of renewable forms of energy, it is clear why the government should help in subsidizing these renewable forms of energy and why it should give it first priority. We have ourselves to blame for the death of our nation. She told us about the government spending on debts, but let me tell you something. I beg to differ. We are working towards our Vision 2030. Many people might argue that this will cause large-scale unemployment, but I want to say that it will create millions of job opportunities, promoting SDG goal number 1, no poverty. People from reduced poverty levels will be able to access these renewable forms of energy. They'll be able to afford them, making their lives more comfortable. Look at example of countries like USA. They have stopped at depending on other countries for non-renewable forms of energy. Poverty. People under poverty will be able to acquire these renewable forms of energy. They'll be able to live comfortable lives. People will be able to be employed in research field to look for problems like global warming, which up to now have not been found the causes and the solutions to it. This will promote SDG goal number 9, affordable and clean environment. People are suffering out here when we have the resources. Why should we be selfish? Why? I tend to wonder. It brings so much pain when I hear of them being in opposition of subsidies, our God-given gifts. Sarcastic, right? It is beyond what the human mind can understand. Why should we stop nature? Why? It makes me feel insecure that we can live amongst people who will oppose this. But also, why should we be selfish? Should we be selfish? In my brown shoes, I leave the stage down.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
From Machakos Academy, my name is Elizabeth Wangoi, strongly opposing the motion that states renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. Climate change, as the first proposer said, is one of the problems facing our country. So how can we rely on renewable forms of energy like solar power and wind power if we have climate change all the time? As far as I know, these climate changes are required for this for these renewable forms of energy to be used. But how can we rely on them 24/7 if we have the problem of climate change in our country? Working towards the future. That's my first point. The second proposer said that we are supposed to work for the future. But how can you work for the future if our now is not okay? We need to work for now so that we can get the products for the future. In July 27, 2009, some grand wind turbines were planted in Lake Turkana, northeastern region of our country. But on September 2018, Craig Richard from the Wind Power Offshore was told by the contractor called Isolux Corsan that the maintenance costs were low, leading to depletion of the project. If it has taken this long, why should the government still subsidize these renewable forms of energy instead of investing in some other things that are going to help our country right now and make it productive? Let's talk about petrol stations. Shell, Total, Delta, where will all these companies go to if the government subsidizes renewable forms of energy? Where will the children who are schooled by parents who work in these companies go to? Where will the families whose breadwinners work in these companies go to? Have you thought about the desperation that they will be in because of lack of employment caused by their unemployment because the government subsidized the renewable forms of energy? Where will the taxes that they remove every month go to? Because we know these renewable forms of energy will not only come to the country for free, they'll be paid for. So the government should not invest their money into these renewable forms of energy, but boost the economy by promoting the people who have non-renewable forms of energy all around the country. I am Elizabeth Wangoi, strongly opposing the motion that states renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government.
The proposers have been asked, how sure are we that the projects that will be subsidized by the government to take advantage of renewable sources of energy will also not lead to losses in the country? The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked, which other sources of energy can be subsidized by the government to eventually benefit the people, if not renewable forms of energy? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to respond.
If this was religion, I would have called it blasphemy. But since it's a question, I'll call it competition. I would like to answer a question that was posted to me by a handsome gentleman seated behind there. Hope we'll have a conversation after this. Why we will not encounter any losses when we subsidize these renewable forms of energy. These renewable forms of energy, they are free. That's wind. Did you pay for wind? They're free. You've compared it with SGR. SGR, we are investing. So, I like to answer your question, and thank you for the question. It really feels light to be on the right side. Isn't it obvious that I'm on the right side? Renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. When the renewable forms of energy are subsidized by the government, the energy price of the consumers will be increased, and even the producers will enjoy it more since their income is going to be increased even more. We will be able to have a country that is developing first. This is the reason why our country is among the developing countries, not a developed country, neither the first developing countries. We'll be able to attain our sustainable development goals. According to the global energy subsidies, by 2011, it reached 88 billion. It said that these renewable forms of energy are environmental beneficial. This will help us to attain our sustainable development goal number 13, climate action. When these renewable forms of energy are subsidized by the government, we will be able to get access to industrialization. It will boost our industrialization. Rural areas where there is no energy power, energy is a challenge. We'll be able to boost these places. Industrialization, job opportunities are going to be found. This will help us attain our sustainable development goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. Kerry Dobbin confirmed it to that these renewable forms of energy are inexhaustible. I mean, when will it dawn and the sun is not shining? When will it dawn and the wind is not blowing? I mean, 75% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. These renewable forms of energy will not let us down immediately we begin subsidizing them. It will help us. It will help our country grow. And they have no environmental hazards to us. They're environmental beneficial. They pose no danger to us. After a day's journey and a hustle bustle, Mommy comes back home. Constance Mutanu, 1, 2, 3, lights off.
Third opposer, you have 3 minutes to respond to your question.
It's good to see you all this fine morning. I am standing in front of you to greatly oppose the motion that says renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government. I come from Machakos Academy and go by the name Ardo Mohammed. So the person asked that, what are we going to do? What other forms of energy can be subsidized by the government? My first opposer said that we leave this to the people. It is not in our hands. The one that is favoring the people more, that is supposed to be subsidized by the government. So my first point is food or energy. Which do you choose? My team and I choose food. Why? Because this is a basic necessity. Why will I want to use biogas? Why will I want to produce biogas by using manure and agricultural waste? Well, I can use it to produce food for the people. Earlier this year, we saw people dying of lack of food in Turkana. Biogas, if it's going to be subsidized, the government is going to use even more of this manure to produce the biogas. So why will I want that? My second point is solar panels. Solar panels are used in solar energy from the sun. If the government wants to subsidize this, we are going to be having more and more solar panels. But these things have a lifespan of 12 years, ladies and gentlemen, according to Wikipedia, of course. So why is it going to go? After 12 years, do you have a system that is going to be like disposing them? We are going to suffer from environmental degradation. I am not ready for that. You are not ready for that. And the coming generation is not ready for that. My third point is, according to the Daily Nation, people are dying of hunger, like in Turkana. We are going to be having more and more people who are like investing in these companies. What is going to happen to the globe? Yeah. What is going to happen to our country? We are going to be having more and more global warming that is causing cancer. Do you know what is cancer? Everybody knows what is cancer. It's a killer disease. We don't want carcinogenic ultraviolet rays to be affecting our children, the children of our children, and so on. So please think about it. My name is Ardo Mohammed, and I'm signing out.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Wow, wow, wow. Gratitude is a must. So thanks to the second proposer who just told us about climate change. You asked us, will these renewable forms of energy help in climate change? We just said that renewable forms of energy create little, if any, emissions to the atmosphere. It will not disrupt the radiative changes in the atmosphere. By this, we will be able to control climate change, which has been a problem to us as a country. You also talked about subsidizing. I bet you understand the meaning of subsidizing. And in fact, we are not comparing the non-renewable forms of energy with the renewable forms of energy. We are looking at the benefits and the disadvantages of subsidizing these renewable forms of energy. When we subsidize them, it doesn't mean that the non-renewable forms of energy will not be used anymore. Yes, they will be used. The people who work with the non-renewable forms of energy will still have employment. Let us not pretend. Let us not ignore the obvious. For the sake of our tomorrow, a very bright tomorrow, in fact, we stand to the ground and say renewable forms of energy should be subsidized by the government.
Opposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
Awesome. What is subsidization? We all know. We do business. Thank you. So I just want to conclude by saying that renewable forms of energy should not be subsidized. Many people are going to suffer from this. Are you ready to waste the lives of millions of Kenyans because of solar or because of renewable forms of energy? As I conclude, I just want to say, I did, I am, and I will forever oppose this motion that says renewable forms of energy should be subsidized. I don't have any other thing to say. I mean, it's food for thought. Thank you.
Matungulu, great use of logos and logic and pathos, emotions. I think Joy, you really, not just Joy, most of you actually would blend so well with the audience, which was a very good thing. One of the questions that I kept on grappling with, we touched on it, but it didn't come out so sharply. For Matungulu, you had very good examples, which of course you did mention, but I thought you could explore on the fact by telling us probably if we have countries in the world where this thing has worked and explore it. You mentioned some, I don't dispute that, but has it worked in those particular countries? Do we have facts to that particular effect? If you'd have explored that one further, I think you'd have given us much information that we need.
For Machakos girl as well, the question for you would be this. When the government subsidizes, aren't we also still paying it somehow, maybe in different forms, all right? Because maybe they will tax somewhere else because they still have to get the money to pay for those costs of those particular subsidized items, whichever the way. And that should have been the major argument, that guess what, maybe citizens will still have to pay somehow. And maybe go around and see countries maybe and ask yourself, how comes no countries have been able to achieve this, even if we know that there are more advanced nations or developed nations that would have already gotten this to this level. So maybe those should have been the arguments that we would have seen. So in terms of mastery of topic and coherency of argument, I think that was what was lacking. But the other levels of 3, in terms of your style, language, and conviction, that was okay, all right? So there could have been more, all right, to both teams. All the best.
So now we'll get to the numbers. Matungulu Girls High School, the judges awarded you 68%. Let's give them a round of applause. Machakos Academy, the judges awarded you 66%. Congratulations. Congratulations to both schools. Keep in mind what Chris has just said.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying tuned to watch the Great Debaters Contest. Remember, it's the only show that gives you the best debates in the country. Until next time, I've been your host, Chris Bodru.
And I am Esperancia Kapanga. See you next time.